Hello, I'm Robert Horton. I'm the programmer historian in residence at Scarecrow Video and a film critic, and it's my pleasure to be leading Scarecrow Academy. This week we're rounding off one section of The Art in Horror, Horror and the Director, which is our current semester in Scarecrow Academy. This series has been focusing on the horror film with an emphasis on how some great directors use film language to create their visions. Our director this week is John Carpenter, and the film is his 1982 movie, The Thing. We'll be meeting to discuss this film on Saturday, September 26th at 2 p.m. Pacific Time. To register for this free class, look for the link on Scarecrow Academy page. It should be somewhere near me, unless you're watching this on YouTube or whatever, and Scarecrow will send you the reminder for how to join us for the Zoom session. We've had some very lively and thoughtful discussions so far, and even if you haven't attended one of our sessions before, please join us. I welcome you to do so. It's been a very nice experience. I will say a few things here about how to frame the movie, maybe before we get together to watch it. A couple of talking points, perhaps. John Carpenter was born in 1948, mostly raised in Kentucky. He was nurtured on a great cycle of science fiction and horror movies that came out in the 1950s and early 60s. He attended USC Film School, but in time-honored tradition, he dropped out of film school in order to start making movies. And he had actually some pretty quick success in the early stages of his career. Among the early successes was a very low-budget but utterly gripping action film called Assault on Precinct 13, which owed quite a bit to one of John Carpenter's filmmaking heroes, Howard Hawks, and also a game-changing horror movie from 1978, Halloween. Early in this stage of Carpenter's career, he already revealed a very distinctive directorial personality, someone who clearly knew how to use the elements of pure cinema, of camera movement, lighting, editing, composition, sound, to create mood and to tell the story. In Halloween, Carpenter had included clips from Howard Hawks' great film, The Thing from Another World, a movie that we actually looked at earlier in Scarecrow Academy here. It's playing on TV on Halloween night in that movie. And then Carpenter would actually turn to remake Hawks' film with The Thing. Although in some ways it's less of a remake than it is a return to the short story that served as the basis for both movies, which is called Who Goes There by John W. Campbell Jr. The Hawks version had actually deviated quite a bit from the original idea of that short story, at the core of which is the idea that the alien visitor can inhabit the bodies of Earthlings and pass unsuspected as one of them, and that is something that Carpenter went and put front and center back in his adaptation. So for this movie, which was supported by a much bigger budget than Carpenter had been used to, the director was able to assemble a great cast of character actors, all male. It's a completely all-male movie, and he got, for the lead role, Kurt Russell. Carpenter had used Kurt Russell in a TV movie biopic of Elvis Presley a few years before this that was very highly rated on TV, and also in action hero mode in Escape from New York, which came out a year or so before The Thing. This was the moment when Kurt Russell went from being a sort of dimly remembered Disney child star to the full-fledged movie star that he remains today. One thing that was surprising at the time of The Thing's release was that Carpenter, who had used a minimum of gore and a maximum of suggestion in Halloween, went full gonzo on the grotesque special effects and makeup in The Thing, abetted by the brilliant effects and makeup artist Rob Bottin. I can tell you that for some of us at the time who were very interested and excited about Carpenter's career, it took some getting used to see this different mode, to see that he was up to something a little bit different, albeit a little more explicit, that had its own kind of power in The Thing. This is a movie about trying to determine the truth about what's in front of you. So in a way, by its very subject matter, it demands close inspection, and we'll do that when we talk. We'll look at how Carpenter creates suspense and terror through his fluid use of the camera. One interesting element in The Thing is the way Carpenter creates visual variety despite the apparently limited means at his disposal, stuck in a frosty outpost at the Antarctic and just a handful of claustrophobic sets. We might also consider the notion of what it means when a horror movie is beautiful You know, in the way that, for instance, Val Lewton's films are. We watched I Walk with a Zombie earlier in The Art in Horror. This film, The Thing, you know, the Carpenter's vision is bleak and the body horror is grotesque, and yet the film itself is often really gorgeous to behold. Carpenter's very good with sound as well. We'll listen to The Thing as well as look at it. Carpenter had previously composed most of the music for his films, but he was able to hire the great Ennio Morricone to score this movie with memorable results. So we'll see how the maestro did with this film score. We might also talk about how Carpenter presents a more cynical vision, as his ending is very different from the Howard Hawks movie. And we could also speculate about how this film, which was not a financial success when it came out in 1982, I think it may have been offering a more sardonic attitude, more attuned to the mood of the 1970s, for instance, than the audience of 1982 was geared up for. This movie came out in the dawn of mourning in America, but it seemed to be forecasting an endless night. There's room to invoke other John Carpenter movies as well. If you want to do that, we can do that, and indeed room to talk about whatever you want to talk about when we get together. We'll see what happens, as Kurt Russell says. So bundle up, and we'll convene on Saturday, September 26th, for more of Scarecrow Academy.